Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Boom. Boom. Hey, how you doing this morning? Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. It is hour one of the big radio show, and it is Wednesday. We're getting ready to dive down into it here. We've got a full boat of guests today, but I have some bad news for you. I hate to tell you this. I hate to say it, but I won't be here on Friday. I did it. I ripped the Band-Aid off. I won't be here on Friday. I tried everything I could, but I'm going to be traveling on Friday and technically just not going to be able to do it. So tomorrow will be the final day of the broadcast for the week. And then we'll have alternate programming on Friday. I guess Mike Gallagher down on the stations on the peninsula. And then, Doug Steffen, I think, up in the interior and everything else. I'm sorry. I know I hate to do that to you, but I've got to get some stuff going on. I just technically I can't do it. So I apologize. This is a busy summer. This is probably going to be my busiest summer in 10 years. I have got a lot of stuff going on. This weekend, I'll be down in Homer. I will be emceeing the Bear Creek Music Festival, which of course is to help the scholarship fund, the Fry Scholarship Fund. Down there, there'll be a big music festival down at the winery and stuff. So I'm going to be down there doing that. I have some other business stuff going on. And so you know what? It is what it is. And I apologize in advance, but this might happen a couple times throughout the summer where I just technically cannot do it. I don't have the wherewithal and I can't make it happen. So my apologies, but that's just how it is. So, you do realize that when you take off a day, it screws us up, says Rick. Yes, I understand that blows everybody's schedule completely up. And I apologize. It's, but this is what happens sometimes. You'll all make it. You'll all make it through. You will. So anyway, that's the thing I just wanted to announce. I didn't decide until yesterday, because I was trying everything that I could to make it happen and, it just didn't work out. So my apologies, but, just know that in my heart, I'll be thinking about you. All right. So, we'll jump in here and we'll get things rolling. On today's program, we'll be joined here in just a hot second by, Representative Kevin McCabe from Big Lake, and we'll talk with him about what's going on around the state, around the area, what's happening with the elections. We'll do the same thing in hour two with State Senator Mike Shower, and so I get to talk to both my legislators today, and we'll get the full meal deal on everything here. So I appreciate you guys coming on board and doing it. And let's just go in. Let's just get going here. Let me get started. Let me get started. I'll push a button here and we will jump into it. Kevin McCabe, our guest here this morning, ready to talk with him about wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. It's a little bit of everything here. And he joins us right now. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning, Michael. How are you? I'd rather talk about wood ticks.
Yeah, well, I mean, wood ticks, it's all kind of the same thing, right? Wood ticks, lunatics, politics is kind of all the same. It's all kinds of ends up in the same bucket when it's all said and done, right?
Yeah, isn't that what they say? Poly meaning many and ticks meaning blood-sucking parasites?
Something like that. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's a horrific train wreck, but it is what it is. It's the best system. It's the what was who said it? It was something like the least worst system out there, right? It was, somebody said it's the worst system of government except for every other system out there. That's what we're looking at here in what we have. So it's a horrific time, but let's get to it. It has to do with the reelection season, and the season's in full swing now. So let's get a kind of a glimpse into what the reelection campaign looks like. I see you're already wearing your shirt, and you're ready to go out there and talk to the folks. So let's get started there. What's happening in this beginning kickoff of the election season? This short now election window, it seems like, Kevin. Where are you at?
Sure. Well, it's I don't know, 2 months from the primary, a little bit over 2 months from the August primary. So yeah, everybody's sort of getting started. I'm holding off a little bit. I felt like maybe we put our signs out and stuff a little too early last year, and I think people get just used to the sign. They become part of the landscape, and truthfully, I think they sort of litter the landscape. And so I'm going to wait a little bit before I start putting out signs and that sort of stuff. Although we've been up to Healy. We went up there, last week, spent some time with Leslie at Roses, and had a district meeting up there at the top end of the district, which is, thanks to Ryan Sheldon, our new district chair, has a real heart for the people in the north. He's from Talkeetna, so we spent some time up there. It's a little bit of a drive for many people, but we had a good turnout for the district meeting. And then we had a coffee the next morning, sort of a campaign coffee for meeting folks. So yeah, we're starting to do a little bit of that. You'll see on the internet some folks with their campaign kickoffs, Julie Colomb, Mia Costello, others in Anchorage. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's certainly the season of running around, and I didn't get near enough honeydews done before it started. So I'm going to be really busy.
Yeah, because you had a pretty short window there. There was only a couple weeks after the session where people were really able to do much of anything. Some people actually hit the ground like 2 or 3 days after the session started, because although there wasn't a special session or any kind of extension, it just feels like there's a bit of urgency in this election season versus, I think, some of the other ones. And I don't know why that is. Maybe that I'm just projecting my own feelings on it, but it seems like there's kind of that urgency in the air.
Yeah, I agree. I think, most Alaskans and most Americans are looking at the economy. They're looking at the presidential election. They're looking at all the lawfare against Trump going on. Like him or hate him, the lawfare and the use of our judicial system and our courts to politically damage a person is disheartening, frankly. And they're sort of feeling it. They're looking at the economy. Holy cow! It's amazing, the price of lumber, the price of everything. You can't get out of. I used to be amazed when you have a shopping cart full at Costco and it would be $200, and now it's like $500, and it's
you are obviously not shopping for my family. I mean, a regular Costco run is $500 or $600, and then my wife came back yesterday or day before, and it was $800 for a shopping trip to Costco, and I'm like, what is going on? I mean, it's madness. They keep saying, oh, it's only 3% inflation. Where is it 3% inflation? I mean, I'm seeing my food costs have gone up 25% in the last 6 months. It's insane.
Right. And we get happy when the price of gas goes down 3 cents a gallon.
Yeah, exactly. No, we saw the headline, gas is going down for the summer. Well, duh, gas always goes down for the summer.
Right.
It's not like you could look at it cyclically, it's always going down for the summer. So this is not anything new. But don't worry, they'll take credit for it.
Right. So I think the urgency is felt by pretty much every Alaskan and every American, even those who 4 years ago said it's fine, everything's fine, and now people are not saying that. So
yeah, no, it's definitely a problem. Have you had a chance to get out on the street yet? Are you doing door knocking? I mean, I know you've been meeting people at events, but I'm always interested to hear what candidates are hearing from their own constituencies, because I think that's the trick. I mean, you could pay money for polls, you can do this, but when you're face to face with people, especially if you're knocking doors and they're not coming to you, you're going to them, you get a chance to hear some things that you probably wouldn't normally hear.
Right. Not so much door knocking. Door knocking in my district is a little bit difficult. There's a few neighborhoods that you can get to in Big Lake, and in a few sort of out around you and KGB off this side of Carmel and some other places. But what I have been doing is going to community council meetings. In fact, I was at one last night where I had some pretty good discussion with folks that are frankly pretty angry and a little angry at me, worried about the budget, socialism, spending money on infrastructure is the ultimate socialism in some people's view. They think that the free market should run everything, and by and large, I agree with them. But, if we can't get our resources out of the ground, if we can't develop the infrastructure for whether it be lumber, mining, oil, gas, it's just going to stay in the ground. And then we're going to shrink, and we're going to just be a state with a big long trail.
Well, I mean, look, it's the bottom line is that the infrastructure is about the only thing that the state really needs to be working on, right? I mean, infrastructure, safety, and schools. Those are the three primary drivers of the state constitution that they say the state is responsible from. There's plenty of things that the state's gotten involved in that it should not be involved in. But I will agree, even as a libertarian and a believer in the free market, that the government does have a place in creating infrastructure, providing public safety, the court system as well, and you're doing something with education. Now, you and I can argue about education. I mean, I think that we're changing some things, but infrastructure and public safety, courts, that is an important thing for sure.
Sure, I don't disagree, and it is in our Constitution that we develop our resources for the maximum sustainability and the maximum benefit for Alaskans. Part of resource development has to be transportation. I've said it on the show before. If you're going to develop your resources, you have to have transportation. It doesn't matter if it's a mule in a saddlebag. You have to be able to get the ore or the product to the people that need it. And that could be Alaskans, it could be the federal government, it could be any number of people, but the resources belong to all Alaskans, and thus it's sort of our job to get the infrastructure ready for the resource development. And that's was a large part of the discussion last night, which I think was great, actually. So
Kevin McCabe is our guest, candidate for re-election here. State representative from Big Lake. We're going to continue our discussions with Kevin here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue in just a moment. Don't forget Mike Showers coming up in hour 2. We'll be back. We're back right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Hey, look, it's 2 times that I've agreed with Harold. He says $1,655 PFD versus $22,000 of government. Of course they're mad. He's right. I mean, of course they're mad. I mean, the PFD gets squeezed down. They're spending a ton of money per government. And then the second thing he says is, where is it right here? The state government's responsibility is limited to constitutional mandates. I mean, I wish it was limited to constitutional mandates because we'd have a lot smaller, more lean, more efficient government than if it was. Because we keep forgetting about the 3 things we're supposed to be dealing with. And instead we get it. I mean, Kevin, isn't this the difference between the must-haves and the nice-to-haves that we've got going on?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And, the problem is I get, and I've said this before as well, I get people in my office the entire session, and they all have a particular project or particular money that they want. Many of them are nonprofits. Many of them are, part of Alaska, frankly. I mean, we're going to talk hopefully about the Long Trail because I'm really angry about that. But, there's a number of people that want money, need money, and you never hear somebody come into your office and say, well, I'm not really here for money. I just want to describe my project to you or describe this thing to you so that you know that it's available to your constituents. And it's frustrating. It is the most frustrating part of being a legislator, I think.
Well, yeah, because people come in with I remember talking to Tammy Wilson, and I said, you've been in the legislature for, I think at that point she'd been in the legislature for 11 years or something. And I said, how many times have you seen just a private individual, just Joe Bob, Alaska, show up in your office and say, I want you to vote for or against this bill. I'm not part of any NGO. I'm not part of any organization, any lobbying group, any whatever. And she said she could count it on one hand, essentially, in 11 years. I said, how many people come into your office every there we go. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. All of a sudden I got the wheels of death. I don't know. My GCI is not doing good the last few days. Time to switch 100% to Starlink. I've been trying to split my stuff with Starlink, and I think it might just have to go straight to Starlink 100% on that. Yeah, Kevin, we're going to talk about the Long Trail because this is a project that I am kind of aghast about, this whole idea. And I don't know how many of you in the legislature have kind of dug down into this a little bit. I spent a little time a couple weeks ago looking at this, and we started pulling tax return 990 forms and everything else from the group that's trying to push this. It's already received $9 million, and it's kind of a crazy situation. So if you're ready to talk about that, I'm ready to talk about it.
Oh yeah, it's and there's things that people aren't even thinking about. I mean, we've mentioned search and rescue and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a great discussion actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to jump into this. The Michael Duke Show continues. Kevin McCabe is our guest. Please like and share the show. Like and follow the show page. Do all the things that we need to do. Let's do. Wonder if anybody ever comes into Kevin's office and says cut spending. I'm going to bet that's probably a pretty low priority for most folks who show up at his office. All right, here we go. Jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're continuing now. Kevin McCabe is our guest, candidate for re-election, and currently the state representative from the Big Lake area. I can't remember what district am I in here, Kevin? District 8?
30.
No, 30. Was 8, now it's 30. All right, let's get back into this. We were just talking during the break here, and if I disappear again, Kevin, you just take over, okay? Because I had a technical verbal during the commercial break, so Kevin will just take over for me here if it goes on here. Kevin, this whole idea of something that's been coming up, and it's been floating around for a while. We've seen it hit the budgets. We've seen it. Now it's being talked about more and more, most recently in an op-ed piece in the Anchorage Daily News, talking about the Alaska Long Trail. Now, this is essentially what would be a unified hiking path from Seward all the way up to Fairbanks, about 500 miles. On paper, well, that sounds great. We just need a hiking path to consolidate. It travels through some of the most popular recreational areas in the state. But this group that's out there, including the people who wrote this op-ed, Miriam Madovia and Sam Dingus, they want a little bit of a different take on it. First of all, their group has been pushing for it, has been created. It's a nonprofit. It's received $9 million so far from the state government. There's $1 million federal grant that's looking at the feasibility of turning it into a national scenic trail, which has its own ramifications, including federal control of this trail and everything else. So while on paper it sounds good, they're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars to create a trail that, I mean, how many people are actually going to walk the length of a 500-mile a trail? And if they're already going through regular popular areas, why do we need another trail to overlap those areas? And what happens when we give it federal control? This is a real challenging thing.
Right. No, I agree. And you know what they're not talking about? Many of these long trail systems go through villages and populated areas. In Alaska, not so much. So I have one basic question for them is, where are they all going to go to the bathroom?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's part of the multi-gazillion dollars that they want for. I mean, if they told you what the ultimate cost, I knew that I've talked about this at one point, so I know that I knew the number at one point. But how much money are they looking for overall in creating this trail, Kevin? Because they've already got $9 million. How much more do they need?
No, it's incredible. I don't even know the exact amount that they want, but it's and they're breaking it up into small pieces. So you see it in the budget and it says $500,000 for this trail here, and then in parentheses it says Alaska Long Trail or Long Trail. So they're breaking it up into these tiny little pieces that you have to actually manually go through and put them all on a list and total them up to find out how much is actually in the budget. Look, our roads need attention. Our railroad needs extensions. Energy in Alaska is threatened, and we need infrastructure to get our resources to market. Your PFDs are being reduced, and we're going to spend money on the Long Trail, and it could bring non-motorized corridors and resource development. In effect, resource development restrictions. There's one down in the Kenai right now called, believe it or not, the historic Iditarod Trail on the Kenai. It's a 500 feet buffer or easement on either side, and you have to get permission to cross it from the federal government. So, we complain all the time about federal overreach and the federal government taking over, if you're thinking of maybe the John Sturgeon case. And yet here we are inviting the federal government in to take over a section of Alaska that will actually bisect the state for resource development. So no snow machines on that 1,000-foot easement, no ATVs, no Argos. So I think it's pretty frustrating.
no motorized vehicles of any kind. You would have to, you couldn't cross it. I mean, not even like, again, to cross it. The Iditarod Trail one, I think that's the one where the company was trying to log some timber and bring it, and all of a sudden they had found out they had to beg the federal government for permission to bring their product from an area that they had, worked with the state, got it all done, logging it, trying to bring it across. And now they've got to beg the federal government permission to just drag their product across the trail to get to the other side. And now they want one that, again, bisects the whole state of Alaska, or at least from Seward all the way up to the interior. That's a huge, huge problem. Now, they keep telling us this is going to be great for us. This is great economic development. It's going to be groovy. It's the best thing ever. I mean, just all this pie in the sky stuff. But I can't see a single. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to attract eco tourists who basically are not going to spend much money here. They're not going to the hotels. They're not paying bed taxes. They're not, they're not paying gas tax because in their rental cars or anything else. They get right to the trail and they hike it and then they fly back and that's it. I mean, these are the people that are going to be attracted to it. I just don't see the economic benefit that they keep talking about.
Right. The return on investment just isn't there. These folks are going to go to their local Walmart in Denver. They're going to fill their backpack full of MREs there because MREs are much cheaper in Denver. And they're going to fly up to Alaska on economy fare tickets and buy a bottle of water and disappear onto this long trail. And we won't get any money from them or hear from them until we have to go search and rescue or until we have to go clean up the trail. Look, I was up in Cantwell the other day talking to a guy up there, and he was talking about cleanup of the Denali Highway after, in the wintertime, they plow in, I think, a mile or so, and then they make a little turnaround so that snowmobilers can go up there and then they groom this snowmobile trail. So he was up there at that area where they park their snowmobile trails in the winter, and he and his granddaughter were part of a cleanup group in Cantwell. They had cleanup day or whatever. And he said the amount of feces and toilet paper and junk right there was incredible. He said if the state is going to do something like that, which Governor Dunleavy likes and the DOT likes, they like this groomed snowmobile trail on the Denali Highway. We have got to put something up there. I think you froze again, Michael. Nope, there you are. So we've got to put something up there for people to use. They drive all the way up from Anchorage, and now they got to use the restroom and use the facilities, and there's nowhere to go. So we have got to fix that. Was his idea, and I don't disagree necessarily with that. But is that our responsibility? How do we reconcile that with the budget? It's the same way with the Long Trail. What are we going to do? Are we going to build outhouses every couple hundred yards? And then who takes care of them? Who cleans them up? Do we have to send, DNR people out there on on the 500-mile trail to clean up the outhouses? I was reading an article about this trail in Spain that where they talk about it. It's a Camino de Santiago trail, and they have pictures of the entire, hundreds of yards long of trail where it's just littered with human waste and toilet paper. And, between that and the search and rescue, this is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, I think, and not providing any return on investment.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the search and rescue component of it because, I think Ryan said it in the chat room. He said, people get lost going to the bus. Could you imagine the recovery efforts required over a 500-mile trail span? And he's not wrong. I mean, I'm sure there'll people that will need to be rescued once they get 100 and something miles out from any kind of civilization. And they'll be like, whoa, wait a sec. But the whole thing to me is this, Kevin. This thing seems to be more of a jobs program and a money program for the group that's organized to try and put this together. They've received $9 million so far from the state of Alaska. And I went back and looked at just the last 3 years of their tax returns, which are available on their website. They have to post them there. And the 990s show that these guys are consuming vast of the $1 million a year, $1.2 million a year. They're spending $700,000 on salaries for the people who are working there. That's a huge, huge amount to just try and basically they're going to the government and they're asking the government for more money so they can continue to pay their salaries to continue to advocate for their pet project. And so it's this self-licking ice cream cone. And, at some point I'm just like, that's, $9 million. That's some real money. You could do something else with that. That could go back to to citizens. That could go back in the PFD. That could go into some other program that needs some help. But it just seems, and again, this argument of economic benefit, show me the numbers. How does this work out as an economic benefit if we're going to attract people into the state? How many people are we talking about? What's the return on investment?
Right. Well, I argue with the railroad all the time about different about the Northern Rail extension or the Point McKenzie Rail extension. And one of the things they always tell me is, look, we have to have a BCA or a benefit cost analysis done, and it has to be +1. So in other words, you have to be, a certain amount over your cost. So there has to be a benefit. So you have to have anchor tenants and all this kind of stuff. And that's for resource development. When you talk to these folks on the Long Trail, they're like, oh, it's going to bring millions. Well, prove it. Where's the proof? Where's your benefit cost analysis for the Long Trail? Where's the return on investment? Show me how much money the tourists that are going to walk or bike on this trail, how much money they will bring in to the state of Alaska, and they can't. So, I mean, why are we forcing a benefit cost analysis, expensive benefit cost analysis on Port McKenzie, on the Port McKenzie rail extension, and we're this pie in the sky trail system? It sounds wonderful. I mean, I'm not much of a hiker, but if I were, it would be great to hike through the Alaska wilderness, but I don't see the benefit to the state.
Right. Well, and in the article where these two folks from the Alaska Long Trail organization, the organization that's receiving all this money, they said, they were talking about, again, getting it designated as a national scenic trail. And it said, what does that do for the Long Trail? It starts out by saying, besides offering a competitive economic benefit from increased worldwide recognition, show how. Okay, so first of all, you have to show me that it's an economic benefit. Then you have to put the modifier of competitive. How does it make it more competitive by making it a national scenic trail? Again, there's no backing to any of this. This is basically just words at that point. Then it says, besides that, it also makes a national scenic trail receives federal funding for maintenance and administration, meaning that we would be turning the administration, the control of this, over to the federal government. I hate to tell you this, but in the state of Alaska specifically, federal control is not a good thing of Alaska lands.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, we just have to look to the John Sturgeon case, and we can see how that went and how much money that cost to run all the way up to the Supreme Court. So I don't disagree at all. Why would we turn that over to the federal government? Why would we turn any land back over to the federal government? In fact, they owe us land from our statehood compact. So, show me the money, if you will.
Yeah, no, exactly. Show me the money. If I recall correctly, that something that the Long Trail, the cost was in the tens of millions of dollars. I think someone upwards of $100 million by the time this is all said and done. I just think that there are so many other things that could be, it could be spent on in this state that needs to be dealt with. This is just, again, somebody's pet project where they've actually created the ability to pay themselves to push for their pet project. And I, for one, am against it at every turn, but I guess we'll see where it goes from there. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We are going to continue here in one more minute. We'll be back with more. We'll talk with Kevin about what he sees coming up in this next session, the election season, the things that he's hitting on, and we'll return right after this. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show. because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Kevin McCabe is our guest here on the program. As we continue ahead, I can hit some of the Politidic says, force everyone who uses the trail to hand carry out their human feces like they make the Iditarod mushers do. There you go.
There's actually a discussion about that on one of the trails in Machu Picchu, actually, where they talk about issuing every hiker one of those. It's like a doggy poop bag, and you have to carry it to the next way station in a biodegradable bag.
Yeah.
And it's probably a great idea.
I mean, a 500-mile trail, I can imagine somebody carrying out a 20-pound bag of human poop by the time they're done there. I mean, it would definitely put a hitch in your get along. But, I mean, again, you're not wrong. I mean, what? Nobody can dig a hole and use the hole like a regular person instead of like a savage and just pooping on the side of the trail. I mean, it's crazy. Again, I have no problem with people wanting to hike the length of Alaska. I think that's great. Even if we wanted to have some kind of, but this idea that we're going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on a trail that might be used by, a fraction of the people, a fraction of the people. And the fact that it's going through areas that are already popular and already being used, and you're going to try and connect it and then give overall control to some entity or organization, or God forbid, the federal government. That's the scary part.
Right. And then, just like down in the Kenai, when we have to get across to manage our forests or manage our resources or something like that. Now you add years onto the permitting process or the, this long trail is very, very important, and you can establish a road across it, but you have to, you have to return it when you're done to the original state of the long trail. And it's just, why are we adding more strings? To me, it's frustrating. We should be in control of our own state, not give it to the federal government. And they're doing it for money. They're doing it because Lisa said that Senator Murkowski said they could get some money from her if they federalized it. So, and right. I think I sent you that link last night. There was a chat going on last night
the e-planning seminar for the BLM National E-Planning. They were doing a thing where they were going to talk about the long trail and everything else. And I thought it was interesting that the splash screen that they use on this has actually got a side-by-side on it, when I know for sure that this is supposed to be a walking long trail and have nothing to do with motorized vehicles. Although I thought it was interesting, the picture that they used to advertise it had a motorized side-by-side on it. So definitely a frustrating thing.
Right.
Well, Kevin, I know, somebody's saying, why are we talking about this? Well, because it's $9 million. I mean, I wish I could monetize my own hobbies, and, maybe we could do a state esports team or something where the state of Alaska paid me to play video games or something like that, because I wish I could find $9 million to pay myself a salary to go out and solicit and lobby for my own personal hobby. That's essentially what's going on here.
Right. Well, I agree. And I think we're talking about it right now because the budget hit the governor's desk late last week, and he has until the 28th to veto, line item veto, whatever things that he wants. And I think that, we need to make our voices known. If you're not interested in the long trail, then maybe we should you should send him a message or email saying, hey, not to, or in the case of the Valley, you could send it to Todd Smolden or, wherever your governor's liaison is, send him a message saying, hey, not too interested in this long trail. The Matsu Borough did exactly that. Although if you look on that Alaska Trails website, they say that the Matsu Borough is a supporter and believes in the long trail, and that's simply not true. So they haven't updated their website yet. I don't know. I don't think the Matsu Borough was ever a fan of this, so I'm not sure where they got that idea.
Well, sure, because they would lose control of the municipal, if it's going through municipal parks or borough parks and borough rec areas, they would lose control of it. Of course, they don't want to. I mean, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right.
But yeah, well, I guess we'll see. We'll see what the governor does. But to me, this is just another one of those things where somebody thinks it's a good idea, and then they utilize more government money to push their good idea to get more government money to push the idea. I mean, again, it's a self-licking ice cream cone for sure. All right, we're going to jump back into it here. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're going to talk more about the election season and the goals and what he sees coming up in the next session. Please like and share, ring the bell, subscribe, do all that stuff. Let's continue on here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Kevin McCabe continues with us here. We get back to it right now. Let's go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yes, I am. I'm a pain in the Michael Duke Show. Good morning and welcome to it. Hour one continues. Common Sense Radio. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We've been talking about some different things. The Long Trail has been our current discussion, but we're moving on to the rest of this election season, next session, where the state is going, what Kevin's going to be focused on. Kevin, I know you've been a big proponent of the rail extension, Port McKenzie. Those have been some of your hot button items. But we've got a new session coming up in the election season. What is the election season? What are we going to be focused on? What do you think people care about? And what are going to be the important things coming up into this new cycle, this new legislative session, and the election season?
Well, certainly Port McKenzie is still going to be a big focus. I hear from people daily about that. In fact, I was at the Big Lake Community Council meeting last night, and I gave a little update on legislative stuff that came out of Juneau and bills and funding and all that stuff. And I neglected to mention the railroad in Port Mac, and the president of the community council called me back to the microphone and said, "Hey, Sport, what about Port McKenzie?" So, yeah, that's going to be a big focus. We have several different bills in the planning stages right now. One of which, of course, was Jesse Sumner's bill to sell the railroad. There's a number of folks that are interested in that. We've had many people reach out to me because of being the chair of the House Transportation Committee, and I'm a co-sponsor on that bill, and we did hear it in House Transportation to sell the railroad. The issue with them, Michael, is we've owned them. We bought them in 1985. The state bought the railroad from the federal government. We have not laid a single mile of track since then. So I asked that question a year ago in November, and was shocked when the CEO of the railroad said not even a mile of running track. There's been some siding and that sort of thing, but how is that helpful for resource development in the state? The railroad is focused on cruise ship passengers, which I think is great, but cruise ship passengers and tourism is 30% of their rail revenue. Freight is 70% of their rail revenue. So Alaskans are concerned about the heavy trucks running through downtown Anchorage and running on the Parks Highway up to Fairbanks and then further up on the Dalton, carrying pipe for Pika and Willow up there. I think they're going to be doing that out of Seward for the next 3 years. Why aren't we bringing it into Port McKenzie and putting it on a rail and sending it at least as far as Fairbanks? And truthfully, if you really think about it, if we had run track all the way to Prudhoe Bay, which is what we should have done when we bought the railroad, we wouldn't have a gas crisis in South Central right now. We would be able to put it on the rail cars, LNG cars, and get it down here, stopping in Fairbanks, stopping in other places along the way, and providing gas for Alaskans. And we took that we took that card out of our decks when we didn't continue to build the railroad like we should have. So that's going to be a big focus of mine. Port McKenzie is key to development in the rest of Alaska. I firmly believe that. There's so many reasons why Port McKenzie is sort of the pivot point, but key to getting Port McKenzie developed is having having the transportation to get the goods there or get them out of there. So we're working pretty hard on that with the borough. And there's still some other stuff that I'm interested in. One of the things that I'm sort of proud of is the direct primary care bill. I think I mentioned that on the program before that passed.
Yeah.
It was my HB 45, but Senator Wilson's HB 40 or SB 47 passed. That's the one we decided to use as the vehicle. And so that'll take effect the 1st of January. Many of the local medical facilities and primary care facilities are moving towards that. And that'll be a great money saving for Alaskans in the healthcare arena. And even small businesses that wanted to offer some sort of healthcare as part of their retainment package or as part of their hiring package would be able to use that.
This is the one that allows for like concierge care and a monthly subscription and things like that.
Yeah, it's not quite concierge care, but yeah, it's a monthly subscription is what it is. It's like a gym membership. You pay per month. In the lower 48, it's anywhere from $80 to $100 a month. Typically, it's about average. And there's various different contracts. You sign a contract with your doctor. You say, here's the doctor says, this is what I will provide for this amount of money. And you just sign it, you pay that amount of money, and then you go in there. And if it fits within the contract, you don't even have to pay a copay. You just go in there and you're fixed. So whether it be stitches or strep throat or a broken leg, if the doctor can provide it, if it's inside your contract, then you're covered. And the best thing about it is the doctors and nurses don't have to spend hours coding in all the different insurance codes and applying to the insurance company and then fighting with them for the payment. So it allows the doctor and nurses to be doctors and nurses again instead of paperwork pushers. So I think it's fabulous, and I think we need to continue along that vein with our healthcare. We had a bill that didn't really go anywhere that I kind of liked, and it was called the Right to Shop bill, and it was about doctors providing sort of an estimate, like an invoice or a cost estimate, or for hip replacement or that kind of thing. So I think it's important that we do that. I talked to Rob Yunt the other day, and he was comparing the cost of Matsu Regional versus Regional Hospital, Alaska Regional and Anchorage. And the lowest difference between Anchorage and Matsu Regional was 20%. The highest difference in procedures, and he only admittedly was able to look at 11 of them. The highest difference was over 800%, cost 800% more in the Matsu at Matsu Regional than in Anchorage. So we really need to get control of our healthcare costs, and that'll be a focus as well. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, more choice is always better than less choice. I mean, that's all I can say on that vein for sure. Kevin, you have an opponent this year, and you're going to be, working hard in that. Do you want to give us the differences, or where you think, you stand, what makes you different and what makes you better than your opponent before we go here? We got about 4 minutes.
Well, Doyle's been an opponent before. Doyle's a good guy. He said last night he was at the Big Lake Community Council as well to introduce himself, which he's done before. Everybody knows him there. And he said he really didn't have any differences with me. And I've asked him that before. I said, well, if you're not upset at me, if I'm doing a good job for you, and then why are you running? And it's I don't want to I don't want to go negative on him, but he said because it only costs $30 to apply, and then people are forced to talk to me for 3 months. So I'm not sure that that's a valid reason for running, but and he certainly was poking a little bit of fun at himself. But it's like I don't understand. So he's a Republican, and it'll be interesting to see how he differentiates himself from me. My spiel, if you will, is I'm a conservative Christian Republican, pro Second Amendment, pro life, and I'm here to listen to you and to hear what you folks want and what my constituents want and what the voters want me to focus on. So I've put out some framework there, and I'm totally interested in listening to anybody. So
A little bit of my own personal stuff here, and Rick actually asked the same question. Can you talk a little bit about the KGB project, Kinnikus Bay Road, because that's a big deal. The road has been very dangerous. They've started to work on it. Any updates on that before we let you go?
I don't have much of an update from the state. That project is percolating along. It's already funded. And the lighting was a little bit of a holdup until they solved that. But that was more than a year ago. So that should be, I think you should be seeing that second, what is it, phase 2 that goes all the way out to Settlers Bay. That they should be heavily into clearing and rights of way and all that sort of stuff by now. And other than that, they haven't really mentioned much to me, so I assume it's on track. Maybe I should probably check with them. I've checked with them on a number of things, in particular the 3 bridges to Fairbanks, which were supposed to be done last season. I think the final one had the final lift paving done yesterday, if it wasn't too rainy. So, yeah, I haven't heard much about KGB at all.
All right. Well, we'd like to see it. This road was crazy, but we appreciate it. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on board. Folks want to find out more about you. You got a website?
I'm sure it's votekevinmccabe.org. And, I've also got my own personal website, which has a lot of my stuff on there, which is kevinjmccabe.com. So.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Hold the line for just a second, folks. We're up against it. Hour 2 is dead ahead. State Senator Mike Shower coming in for the Hour of Power. We will continue in just a moment. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Election season. Woo, baby. It's going to be good stuff. We'll be back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere. All right, Kevin. Final thoughts here. We'll let you wrap up, give you the final bite at the apple, anything that we missed or anything that has come to mind since we got started, whatever you want to hit on here. Hit me with it.
Sure. Thanks. There's some rumors about a special session. Certainly none of the House majority is interested in calling ourselves into special session, and I doubt the governor will do it. There were 5 bills that passed at the end of the session that were after midnight. HB 29, which was my insurance bill, we started it before midnight, and the vote count was taken after midnight. That's one of them. The funding for the railroad for the sewer dock was another one. So there are 5 bills that the governor has a possibility of vetoing just because their Department of Law considers them unconstitutional because they were after the end of the session. There's some precedent, apparently, if you've started discussing them and into extending after midnight. I don't think I necessarily agree with that, but it'll kind of fall where it falls, and we'll move on from there. My HB 3, which is the gold and silver bill, which I know a lot of people on your program are interested in, that didn't make it. It sat in Senator Kawasaki's committee for 2.5 months, despite myself and my staff virtually begging him to move it out on a daily basis. And as a result of that, it got stuck in Senate Finance right at the end, and I couldn't get it through, even though there were some senators that were very interested in it. So I'm still planning to move that. In fact, we have it filed with LegLegal already. It's in the queue to be hopefully be HB1 next year. and we'll get that moving. And once again, totally focused on the railroad, on Port McKenzie, on the things for my district, and education will also be a big deal. So everybody's looking for a path forward. You hear all this deal about, the Republicans in the House majority are not, they don't care about the kids. And it's just not true. We provided $26 million for major school maintenance, the first 15 project on Deed's list on major school maintenance. There was a $680 granted outside the formula increase to the BSA. And I'm not so sure until the formula changes and until a significant number of things change in our education that there will be an inside the formula increase until we resolve the correspondence school, the charter school, as well as the outcomes.
Right.
We have got to find a way to focus on our children and not on the business of doing schools, if you will. And that might be separating out the power requirements, the energy requirements of the various school districts, and getting them away from the funding for the classrooms. So,
well, yeah, I mean, if we had a mandate of 70% of the BSA's got to get up into the classroom, I think that would be a whole lot different. If there were some metrics that changed it and said, you have to accomplish X with the money that we give you. The problem is, of course, the education industry does not want to have any kind of metrics or meritocracy or any kind of accountability baked into these bills. That's part of the problem.
Right. And it used to be in statute, 70% had to go to the classrooms. And if you talk to some of the administrators and some of the 3 and 4 letter word groups that, school board, Alaska School Board administrators and that sort of thing, if you talk to them, they'll say, well, 72% of it does go there. And then you look at it, and the coding includes administration, includes the entire IT department, and there's just no way. So maybe we need to return to that statute. I don't. I would
love to see a new bill that would put that back into statute, because I think that would make a big difference. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. I appreciate you being part of it. We look forward to it. Good luck. We'll probably talk to you again at least once before the end of the election season. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for letting me be the opening act for the shower hour power again.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We always got to do it. You always got to have a good lead man going in. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on board. All right, let's get over to here, and we will get Mike Shower on the line. See if we can make this work here. Hey, look at that. Work the first time. Oh, it's so good. So good when it works the first time. All right. Hello. How you doing? How you doing, man?
I'm here.
You're good to go. You're good to go. You're ready to jump into this and face the music, so to speak?
Well, I have my voice mostly back, so that's a positive. Last week I had 0.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm better.
Yeah. No, last week Michelle said that sounded like you were close to death. I mean, so it's
well, I was coughing. I had something, but the worst part was my voice. I literally couldn't talk.
Yeah. Well,
it was the oddest thing, because I flew to China and back inside of 24 hours. I was in the air for 22, all the way there, all the way back. So I didn't have to spend extra time coming home. And pretty much about the time I landed in China, my voice was just gone. I'm like, what in the world? It was the oddest thing.
And some people were so grateful. Always, yeah. Well, if you can't poke fun, you can't poke fun. All right, we're gonna jump into it here in just a second. Then I'm gonna put you back on hold. We're gonna continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get to it. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome to it, hour 2 of the big radio show for this beautiful Wednesday. If you're just joining us, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in. My big announcement is that I will not be here on Friday. It's sad. I know you're upset. It is what it is. I will be traveling, and I've tried to figure out to jigger a way to make it happen, and it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So that's just the good and the bad news. Alternative programming will be available in both up in the interior, out to Delta, and then down onto the peninsula as well. So you'll be listening to somebody else on Friday. I'm sorry. It is what it is, but we'll be back bright and early Monday morning, ready to go, and we'll be kicking things off again there. So just don't sweat it. We'll keep going with that. We just finished up with Representative Kevin McCabe, District 30 out here in Big Lake. And now, of course, being Wednesday in his normal time slot, we're going to get a chance to talk to State Senator Mike Shower, State Senator for District O. And he's going to come on board, and we're going to chat with him and get kind of the full meal deal here for the Shower Hour of Power. As we continue to crank along, and State Senator Mike Shower joins us right now. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Well, good morning. I'm recovering. Mostly my voice back, like I told you in the break. It still cracks a little bit. It's really a weird one. I don't know why.
Yeah, no,
there's me over a week to get back.
Yeah, there's been some different bugs going around, and one of them is kind of that upper respiratory throat thing happening. So I'm glad, but I'm glad you're back with us, and I appreciate you coming on board and being part of it today. All right, Mike. Well, let's see. I want to give you, kind of free reign to do some of the things that you like to talk about, whatever the things that are hot and heavy on your mind. We have talked about a couple things. The Long Trail is one of them. And I know somebody in the chat room just groaned because they're like, didn't we spend 20 minutes talking about that last hour? We did. But I want to give you a shot, a chance to take a bite at that apple if you like. Of course, we've got this election season. What do you think the governor's going to be vetoing here, and everything else? So let's get started. What the topics du jour? You take your pick, and we'll jump in.
All right. Well, that's unusual because normally you keep this very structured, and there's no free reign allowed.
God,
so
I tried.
I'm not really sure
I try. It's like herding cats with a shotgun. Anyway, so where do you want to start?
Well, you threw out some, so we can mention them briefly. Long Trail. I guess in theory, a long trail as part of an entire economic development mindset from the state would be fine. But when I look at the Long Trail and we're prioritizing money when we have roads that are falling apart, when we have rapid growth in, say, the Matsu that can't get money or enough money anyways for new construction of roads and bridges and things, when I look at the fact that we have crumbling infrastructure around other parts of the state, when I look at the fact that we are trying to dump just hundreds of millions of dollars into the public sector government on virtually everything. And then we are struggling to develop our resources, especially with a hostile government, a federal government, I should say, to resource development in Alaska. And there are people, a few Republicans, but mostly Democrats, want to focus on a long trail. And we're spending millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars for a long trail, some green dream. I guess the question becomes, Mike, where's your priorities, right? This is somebody's dream. This is a pipe dream. Is what it is. It's not a priority. It's not something we should be focusing on right now. And it's not going to bring us all this money, because I heard a few of them stand up during debates over this long trail and funding on the floor. And it was like, this is going to bring money. This is going to bring people. No, it's not. It's going to bring a bunch of granola types out from California, Oregon, and Washington State. And they're going to come into the state because they have their backpacks and their flip-flops or their Birkenstocks or whatever the heck they hike in. And they're going to buy almost nothing here. Maybe a few bottles of water and something, because they're going to bring it with them, and they're going to go disappear into the long trail, one into the other, and then they're going to fly home. They're going to fly home. You're not going to get much from these people. They're making it sound like there's going to be this big economic boom. Nothing. Very little's coming out of that whole thing. I'm telling you right now, and we're already 2/3 controlled by the federal government as far as our land, and can't get it back. So when I look at some concerns of things, and I'll give you a very brief one, about 2 months ago, I was with a bunch of loggers and millers that were trying to get state land open so that they could get their operations surviving, frankly, just to make money and employ locals, right, in these different parts of the state. And they couldn't get help from the state for different things. There's some greenies and some, bureaucrats and lefties in the state government. Well, I know that's a shocker to everybody, right? State government, but they are. And so these guys are looking at the commissioner, and I'm sitting there. I'm the only official, or the only elected official in the room, and I'm just looking and going, this is a problem. We're not opening up our own lands. We have hundreds of millions of trees and a lot of dead spruce, and we can't log this, really? So the commissioner writes a little bit shocked, I think, as well, of the resistance, and we're moving on that now. We got a little bill passed, so that was a positive. So here's the point, Mike, is that that could have this RSA, these clear, or what do you call them? Basically rights of way and
RS 2477.
Kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
And these areas, these setbacks, there's like 500 feet on either side of this whole historic trail, and they're going to be doing the same thing here. I'm going, that's going to limit access. There was one going down towards Seward or somewhere down there, down south and south central, and they couldn't get to it because they had to cross this old trail, and they wouldn't give them access. And these are people that there were acres and acres, just how many? I don't even remember how many acres that they could log. Anyways, point is, Mike, long diatribe on that one because it was frustrating. And then I watched them add money. And you've heard me say this over the capital budget, which was just infuriating, that the Senate majority in all its glory wouldn't give me $100,000 of reappropriation money from last year that wasn't spent in last year's budget, $100,000 for a clean water well for the Glacier View community up the Glen Highway, rural community. $100,000 for clean water. Couldn't get it. Wouldn't give it to me. That's how, I don't even want to use the word, how bad they were in this. And they gave Willikowski $1 million just a few minutes later of reappropriation money for the long trail. Tell me where your priorities are, Mike. Tell me. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things brought up. But yeah, just stop. Stop. It doesn't make sense. You're wasting money. You're going to spend taxpayer money on somebody's green dream while there are communities that can't get clean drinking water. Where are our priorities? So that's one thing. What else did you bring up? You had a couple that you threw out there.
Let me comment real quick since we're in a new hour here. I was just looking at the 990 forms from the Alaska Trails, which is the organization that's pushing the long trail, that has got all the, that's received this $9 million from the long trail. They received $1.2 million in grants in their 2023 year, and yet they're spending $740,000 on employee compensation and benefits, and that plus the salaries and everything else, other expenses. I mean, they're spending millions of dollars to push their pet project. They're getting money from the state to then turn around and lobby for more money from the state. There are people who are making this their full-time job. I mean,
kind of like public sector unions.
yeah.
Strange.
I mean, it's crazy. They spent $28,000 on education of training and education. Now, training of who and education for who, but then they spent another $775,000 on paying the salaries and everything. I mean, this is a boondoggle. This is somebody who has a pet project, has a hobby, and they figured out a way to get the state to pay their salary to push their hobby. That's what this is about. $9 million to these people already.
Nice gig if you can get it.
Yeah, no, I
Right.
mean, I'm all about it. How do I get my hobby to be funded by the state? Where I can make $100,000 a year doing something like this. It's madness.
Well, that's what I said, Mike. And it's more madness when you consider your priorities. When you have the need for infrastructure, clean water, and other things, but you prioritize somebody's green dream that isn't really going to give us an economic boom at all, then I think you've lost your way. And that's my point about the Senate majority, is you're pushing things that don't make sense economically. You're giving, for the lack of a better term, kickbacks to people that support you, for long trail money, for, like you said, compensation and benefits and other things. We're not really building the trail per se, but you have communities that are hurting for real safety, life type issues. Then no, then it doesn't make sense. It doesn't pass the common sense test. Look, if we're drowning in money and we were putting money into the permanent fund corpus and we had more money we knew what to do with decades ago that kind of got us here, our little spending problem, then I guess you could throw a few million in and nobody would really notice. But that's not where we are, Mike. We are cutting money from the dividend because, that's what so many of these Republicans and Democrats, we haven't increased spending at all. It's been flat. We've cut to the bone. Really? We haven't spent, we haven't increased government spending. Then tell me why you've had to take 2/3 of the amount of money that should have gone to the dividend for public spending for the government. That means you are running out of money because you're running out of income, I should say, right? Taxes, because you had to. You've had to take the dividend, more and more of it, to pay for the government you're increasing spending on. And now we've got Republicans after defined benefits that should be standing against it. We've got education spending that's going to help us break the bank. We're just a few years, Mike, from being at a point where there is no money left to spend without some draconian measures, taxes, cuts, you name it. That stuff's going to be on the table here shortly because we're not going to have a choice.
Right.
We have a choice now. We have a choice now to balance it while we have income left, while we have something to work with. But there is not the will or the motivation or the foresight inside the legislature to do this, other than a few of us. There's a few, but only a few. And we are not getting those passed. Representative Carpenter, almost got basically the one small piece of the comprehensive fiscal policy through the House, which would have never even been heard in the Senate. And it was just the constitutionalization of the PFD. Didn't have an amount, right? It was what the fiscal policy working group said. Just get it constitutionalized so it says there will be one. And then we'll deal with the statute, because there wasn't the will to do anything else. That was one piece of about 5 or 6 that you need. So my point is, Mike, we have no foresight. And I don't think a lot of people want to fix the problem, because then they can't manipulate the levers of power. So how do you get past this? Like, people say, well, term limits, great. How are you going to get that past the legislature when those people want to be there for 40 years? You're not going to get them to vote for it. A citizens initiative, and you and I both know, what do you need to really make things change? You need money, right? You got to have access to a lot of money. People like Scott Kendall doing things like ranked voting, right? He's got tons of money, millions, tens of millions from the lower 48. Dark money, big benefactors, big lefty organizations and billionaires are helping fund that all over the country, right? Like Soros, the backed DAs. These DAs that are attacking Trump right now, those are Soros-backed funds, right? That's where they came from a few years ago. He dumped in hundreds of millions of dollars, really, to get his DAs, his left-wing DAs put in. So my point is, Mike, it takes money, right, to be able to do this kind of stuff, and it takes manpower. So yes, we could change some of these via citizens initiative, potentially, but they're expensive and they take a lot of money and people and time. So it's a tough one to fix some of these through the legislature, because it's simply not interested in solving the problems. The chaos is usable for some people to be able to do things. So,
Right.
and then it's always the big lie, right? Oh, well, we're just, we just can't put in money into a PFD anymore because we got to spend money on government. Oh, we don't have any money to spend, but yet you can put in an extremely expensive defined benefit bill. You can increase education spending by a couple hundred million. You can do a broadband assistance for another 40 million plus 360 million of federal money, which is our tax. You see how we don't have money, but
Right.
hundreds of millions of these things they want. Oh, that's fine. That's not a problem. Yeah, that's good money. We need to spend that money. $1 million
Right.
for the long show. Yeah, that's no problem whatsoever. Clean drinking water. We don't need that.
Right.
But we need these other. See, the points that I go back to what I started, Mike. Where are your priorities as a legislature? Is it to make us sustainable long term in a stable economy, and it's based on federal or state spending? Is it to ensure we'll have a brighter future for our kids? Is it to ensure that we will have solid infrastructure? And I would answer is not.
Yeah. Mike Showers, our guest, State Senator District O. We'll continue with our discussion with him here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Mike Showers, our guest. We continue here with him here during the break. Mike, somebody has said, a couple of people have talked about, you mentioned this clean water thing, and so maybe you need to give us a little bit of background, because Gary says, water is a community city issue, not a state issue. No one from the state helped me punch a well or filtration. Stop spending on projects that are not the state's responsibility. So I mean, with this what is the issue here in this community? Just give us some background here so we kind of have a better idea what we're talking about.
A lot of communities, Mike, the more rural they are, they don't have any infrastructure, right? So the borough doesn't have city infrastructure in rural Alaska, virtually anywhere. So there are the requests from communities for, and these are capital infrastructure requests. For example, in this case, I just use Glacier View, that area. They don't have a clean water station, if you will. A number of communities do. And they have to put their own money in. It's not just like the state just comes in and pays for it. This is a portion of it to help get them to a certain level. A lot of cases they need X amount, and then they have already funded the rest of it, right? Or they can get federal, grants or whatever it may be. But there's a setup to it, right? So in this particular case, this one was a $100,000 request to get them to the level they need to be able to put in a clean water station, so that people in the community that don't have access to the clean water, or they don't have the money, again, many of these are very poor communities, they can punch in a station and people can drive to the station, go to the station, fill up their clean water, 5-gallon jugs, whatever it is, and take it home. So Gary is right in the sense that the state's job is not necessarily to nanny people or to take care of them, but these are legitimate capital infrastructure requests that have to compete against everything else, right? And so across the state, we have certain amounts of money set aside and a list of projects that is way bigger than the money available. So we prioritize. But when I looked at the District 30 in this case, that was the East District of the two House districts, we had very few capital infrastructure requests other than STIP federal money, right, for, continuing to repave roads and stuff like that. Basically the infrastructure that people use, roads, bridges, etc. There's always some of that you try to, put in, and over time, over every couple of years, you're trying to put that through and go, where are the worst roads? All right, let's work on that one next year. And where's the worst bridges, or whatever those things are. If you have a clean water station for a community, that falls into the category of one of those life and safety things that we can do if the money's available. And in this case, it was money that wasn't used last year, which is why I asked for a reappropriate. I didn't ask for new money. I asked for that in the capital infrastructure. It's not operating costs. There's a difference. So we do that every year for these capital infrastructure requests if they are available. Same thing about had a request for one over on the other district for a building so they could house EMS, fire truck, ambulance, pretty far out on the west side towards Denali, where they don't have that service. It takes like 45 minutes to an hour to get one there out of Wasilla. So these are just requests that are put in every year for different things and try to prioritize them. I don't look at long trail and go, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to agree to that. No, not voting for that. But if there's a community that could use clean water, a well that would help people, then yeah, I'm okay with doing that. Same thing for a building for EMS, right? Or we had one that was a community building for the same purposes up by, oh shoot, it was further up towards Glen Allen. I don't remember the name of the exact one now, but there's things like that we do with capital infrastructure, Mike, that helps the community. I'm okay doing that. Some people don't like that, or they think that everybody should just suck it up there, and that's their right. I'll respect that opinion. But if I have the ability with certain funds to help communities do better, I'm okay with that. I am. But it doesn't always work, right? Obviously, in this case, it didn't. But I go back to, well, if you have funds and you're trying to help communities, Mike, it's you're going to build a freaking trail, or you're going to build a clean water station. To me, that's a no-brainer if those are your two choices.
Right. Well, or a firehouse or a long
Whatever.
trail. I mean, again, that makes sense. And that goes back to the infrastructure, I think, as well, when we're talking about those things. All right, we're going to continue ahead here. We're about 15 seconds out. Mike Shower is our guest. And we're going to continue with this. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff. Let's get to it. Let's continue on here, shall we? Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
God, he's mean. So mean. All right, we're continuing now with Mike Shower, State Senator District O. You said something in the last segment, Mike, that I want to expand on, because I think this is what I've been talking about for a long time. We've talked about the need for people to have their PFDs paid, a full statutory PFD. Now, that seems to have gone the way of the dodo. It seems like nobody's really talking about it anymore. But the bottom line is that what we're doing right now cannot continue. You said yourself, we're going to run out of money. The governor's 10-year plan shows that we're going to run out of money. We're running into deficits. In just a couple of years, it's going to be into deficit spending. They could take all of the PFD, and eventually that's not enough money to keep the government going. What is the status of the permanent fund dividend? Where does it go from here? What do we do to try and fix it? What do we do to try and save it? Because, I mean, really, not even you are talking about it because the political will is not there. And I understand not wanting to raise the frustration level of constituencies, but where are we at on the PFD? What are we doing here?
It's not that I've given up on it, Mike, but like I said, it's like how many years do you bang your head against the wall and just continually make zero progress? And you would think, well, let's just change the players, right? Because 6-7 years ago, you and I talking the program, we'll change the players out, and then we'll get there. We'll vote in some pro PFD people. How's that worked out for us? So it's actually going worse. It almost seems like than it is before. And so this is not to be, doom and gloom. It's just what's the reality of the battlefield in front of you. And the reality is right now, even with the amount of new legislators, which is probably at this point 2/3 to 3/4 since I started there 7 years ago, have changed hands now, and nothing's changed. So even the new ones coming in, you would think some of them were ran on the PFD, support the PFD. Like there's the 3 Democrats in the Senate, right? Oh, I'm all for the PFD until they get into the majority. And then they have the gavel and they have power. They ain't voted for the PFD now. So when people say I'm pro PFD, baloney, Mike. It's only a thing of convenience, right? When they were in the minority, they could say they voted for it all day long and get away with it, right? Because, I'm the minority, I can't control this. Now they're in the majority. What have they done for the PFD in the last 2 years? Nothing, right? So even those that have historically said they support the PFD is just a flat out lie because they've voted against the PFD. And so The only ones that have voted for the PFD in the Senate for the last 2 years were the Senate Republicans and the minority, the three of us. That's it. There was one or two of the majority, a couple of the majority members that voted for it, but that was a political move, right? They had to, or they're dead, when they run for election, so a re-election. So I guess, again, not to be doom and gloom, but I have to tell you what I see, and what I see is no political will. I mean, Mike, this was a big issue. It was slightly smaller than SB 91, repealing that omnibus crime bill that was terrible, soft on crime, the catch and release bill, but people called in by the thousands and wrote letters and were very fired up years ago. And today, if we have something about it, 12 people call in, right? So even the people are tired, and they kind of see the writing on the wall, I suppose. And it's like, how do you jump up and down and scream about it, but nothing happens? We put countless hours into a fiscal policy working group that suggested a 50-50 out of the POMB draw. It said 50-50 split, 50 to government, 50 to the people. And, that was something that you could get enough votes to pass as part of a comprehensive plan. Of course, you got to get the plan passed, and we don't seem to have enough people that want to actually lock that down either. So if you can't even get agreement to go to a 50-50 split of whatever is left at this point, because the statutory formula is out the window. I'm here to tell you that. Like I said, I'm not gonna tell you guys anything other than what I see. And what I see is that's gone. Nobody, I say nobody, only a handful of people are interested in doing that. And at this point, and this is the great thing from the great lie, right, is that at this point, Mike, there isn't money left to pay the PFD, the statutory PFD, without overdrawing on something else. And there's a reason for that. The reason that they always say, oh, we've kept, and I said this over the break, we've kept spending flat. Then explain to me why we have to take more of the earnings of the permanent fund to pay for government in a smaller PFD. Because the only way you're going to get a statutory, at this point, even a 50-50 PFD, is to take more money from the corpus or something else, or draw down the ERA, not just the earnings of it, but actual money from those sources. That's the only way you're going to get there. There's only one way you could be at this point, Mike, and that is we've increased our spending. That's it. I mean, there's an alternative, right, that everything's dropped on us, but that's not what happened. This isn't 3 or 4 years ago with COVID where the stock market collapsed, right? Oil revenue was just out the window. We were literally, as we were paying people to take our oil for a little while. People don't realize that. And we had no tourism, nothing that year or two. So the whole thing collapsed. So we didn't have any money. Okay, you have years like that. And guess what? The people aren't stupid, Mike. They understand a year like that. You go, hey, guys, the PFD this year is going to be like $400 because, everything collapsed. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, I get it. I understood, right? But when that's not the case, people go, well, how come you're not following the law? That's a legitimate question, isn't it? And that's where we are. So people need to understand we have increased spending to a point, and there is no other revenue or taxes to the state. You have to balance the equation. And to be fair in a weird and twisted way, the budget this year was relatively balanced with what money was available to spend and what was spent. But it was, of course, balanced on the backs of the people in the private sector by taking money from the private sector out of the permanent fund dividend and giving it to government. That is the reality. You can hem and haw and make excuses all day long and say why you voted for the budget, whatever it is, you can say it all day long. But what I just said is the reality. We have spent money to a point, increased spending, to where this is what was left. That's 1380 PFD, 1600 with an energy thing if oil stays at a high price, blah, 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 whatever. That's it. There is no more debate. There is no more points to it. That's where we are. In a couple years down the road, Mike, if certain legislators get their defined benefits, if certain legislators get more increased education spending, if they get this bill and that bill, in just a few short years, there will be nothing left for a PFD. And the only way you're going to have money left for that is you're going to have to do what? You and I both know what the answer is. You're going to have to tax. Who are you going to tax? I've said this repeatedly. Who are you going to tax in a private sector economy that's anemic and struggling to get by? You go buy a 3 bags of groceries at Fred Meyer's, $200. Where are you going to get your tax money from, Mike? The people can't afford it, right? So you're going to have to go after like a certain senior Democrats' favorite target, right? The oil companies. Soak those suckers. The rich. Go after the rich. Well, there ain't a lot of those around. The oil companies are barely getting by. You got a federal government that's attacking them relentlessly, the Biden administration. So drive those out. That'd be a great idea, because then we'll have, oh, what a lawn trail. We'll get a few dollars from each of those, green tourists coming up. It's just, sometimes you have to laugh, right? Because that's the reality we're
answer.
dealing with.
That's the
It
answer.
is.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, people don't understand it. And even though the numbers are there and we're looking at it and we see it in black and white, the answer is more, just more. It doesn't matter that we're going to run out. Doesn't matter that we're running deficits in 2 years. None of that matters. Because again, they'll come to us hat in hand and basically say, well, now you guys, the free rides are over. Free rides die hard. Now you got to pay your fair share. I mean, we just saw it in Anchorage. Yesterday, they just came out and proposed a 3% sales tax in Anchorage to supposedly help reduce property taxes. They sell it as if it's temporary,
sure.
but it's
Hey,
not.
Mike, hey, I got some beachfront property in Arizona I want to sell
Yeah,
you.
I mean,
will you buy it?
Exactly. I mean, this is part of the problem.
Trust us. We're from the government. Trust us.
Yeah, and they made sure to highlight that hey, we don't pay a lot of taxes. That's that they basically said. They said, well, we don't pay a lot of taxes, so
Really?
the tax
doesn't pay?
burden is low.
Who doesn't pay those taxes? Mike? You don't pay property taxes?
Well, in
You
Anchorage,
think I don't own a house. I'm renting. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Because the owner of the house that's renting or the apartment building isn't paying property tax. Really?
Right. It's not baked
trust me,
in.
brother.
Yeah.
You're paying taxes.
It's not baked
you're
in. Yeah. No.
Every gallon of gasoline you're buying, you don't think you're paying taxes? You don't have taxes on all these different things that we pay, from property taxes to gasoline taxes to federal taxes. Mike, we pay plenty of taxes. So look at all the companies that are paying taxes. You're not paying your fair share? Really? Look at the oil companies that have been propping up this state for 40 plus years now, that are paying taxes to the state like crazy, that built it. So yeah, there's plenty of taxes being paid, Mike. Is it true there's not much in the way of sales or income? Yeah, no income tax. Got it. Check. No sales tax. But I go back to, they keep saying this, Pepe, and I don't think plethora means what you think it means, Pepe, because, well, I got a question for you. You got a couple 100,000 people working, and you have the highest per capita expense and size of federal, or I should say state and municipal governments in the nation. And this isn't, again, I've said it 100 times and I'll keep saying it, this isn't California with 40 million people, or Texas with 35, or Florida with 28 million people that you can draw on with a diverse private economy, where you can draw billions of dollars of tax money. We have a couple 100,000 people, Mike, most of which live under the median wage of $77,000 a year, who those people are barely surviving with the cost of living and Bidenflation and the cost of governments across the nation. So who are you going to tax to continue to prop up the public sector in this state, when your economy, your people and your private economy are barely getting by, with a oil industry that has propped up this state for decades, and a federal government that's on the attack on oil and gas? Where exactly are you going to get the money from to keep this party going once you've taken it all from the permanent fund? Because that's the path we're on. That's my question. I'm going to keep asking him, Mike, because nobody's answering me. Where are you going to get the money from?
Right.
If you're one of the pay your fair share, who are you going to get it from? You got certain Democrats that will just get it from the oil companies. Really? The ones that they can't get their 5 pads open to actually increase, and they only get 2 from the federal government? That's who you're going to go after? You're going to drive them to the tar sands of Canada, or to the cheaper oil, as crazy as it is in Russia? Or you're going to get it from OPEC or Venezuela? Where are you going to get it, Mike? Because the problem you're going to run into here is you're going to run out the private sector in the state, and we don't have that big booming economy. We could, with the federal government that was for us, we could do that in Alaska, but we're not. So anyways, long discussion. I know we've talked about it a bunch. We'll go on to something else, but I just keep asking the question, Mike, where are you going to get the money from?
Right.
And they're just going to look at you with like deer in the headlight looks, like,
well, and my final comment on this is that all the quotes in the newspaper over this new proposed tax is, we've got to stop people from exiting Anchorage, so let's put a sales tax in. That's what they're literally saying. And I'm just like,
the only way they're going to stop the exodus out of Anchorage, Mike, they're going to have to build a freaking gate. We're gonna have to build the infamous, oh my God, it's a wall.
Yeah.
People are gonna start shaking and have cold shivers and
Yeah.
chills doing that. So, hey, build a wall. What's this wall for? It's not to keep people out, it's to keep people in. They can't leave Anchorage.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Oh,
We are continuing on. Mike Shower is our guest. One final segment. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm really going to give him his free reign in the next segment. I mean, I know that that's hard to believe. It hasn't happened already, but we'll continue here. One final segment, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Mike Shower is our guest. As we go, I mean, I keep reading this article, Mike, and it's just, I mean, my head is going to explode as I read the justifications for what's going on. They want to build amenities. They want to build projects. They want to do all this kind of stuff. This new tax is going to raise $180 million. They're, again, quick to point out that Anchorage has a high property tax, but the overall tax burden on Alaska or an Anchorage residents is low, because they have no sales taxes, no income tax or anything else. And then they go on to talk about how it's going to be low, but it will mean the average Anchorage household will have an overall larger tax bill, about an extra $240 a year extra, even though it's going to, I mean, so it's more money. That's the thing. It's more money. We're going to spread it more broadly. We're going to do this other things, but in the long run, it's more. And that's what we're going to see. I guarantee you that's what we're going to see at the state level. Am I wrong?
No, of course you're not wrong, Mike. If you give us money, we're going to spend it. That's one of the problems with government. It's OPM. It's other people's money. It's real easy to write a check when it's not your money, when it's not directly coming out of your pocket, right? So it's just, that's one of the things. It's OPM. It's easy to spend it under LaFrance. And the people in the Anchorage Assembly, you're going to go gangbusters. I mean, they're already starting the green dream in Anchorage now, Mike. Bike paths down there. You got 3-lane roads that help with the traffic burden. They're already chopping those down to 2 so they can have a bike path, with nobody on it. I've seen that thing down there. I'm like, you guys have lost your minds already. I mean, let's build a wall around Anchorage so we don't have to deal with it anymore. And let's put a bypass so those of us that are still sane can go from, north to south and just bypass Anchorage and keep going.
We need a ring road.
We
need a ring road around Anchorage so we can just pass right on through.
Just make it on the west side so we can still get to the airport, and then let's bypass Anchorage and let them exist. I mean, there's some great people in Anchorage. And I feel bad for them, but they're the city, the government, and the nuts down there. They've just lost their minds. They're going to destroy Anchorage from that perspective.
But again, my whole point is as goes Anchorage, so goes. It's like monkey see, monkey do in this state. As Anchorage goes, so goes the rest of the state. And if Anchorage is talking about a sales tax, they're going to, and again, with the argument that it's somehow going to offset the property taxes in the long run.
No, it's not.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's what gets me. And I'm going to do probably a whole segment or a whole hour on this sometime in the near future. One of the things that they keep going on about was, we looked at different ideas at different places as to figure out how they dealt with their problems. And they highlight that the sales tax idea was inspired by Oklahoma City, which in the 1990s faced many of the same economic struggles that Anchorage faces, including families that were leaving. And so they went ahead and voters on multiple occasions approved temporary sales taxes that focused on building amenities, she said. So they talk about So I thought, okay, well, that was the 90s. We're in 2024. Let me go to Oklahoma City and see what's happened. Their temporary sales tax is permanent now. And it's almost 5% in the city of Oklahoma. The combined tax rate for the Oklahoma City, including state and city and state taxes, is almost 9%. And so what was a temporary measure always becomes permanent. Initially, it's supposed to offset the property taxes. But historically, and we've seen this time and time and time again, when you have a sales tax and a property tax with the intent of reducing one, in the end, over the course of a 10-year period, they always both go up. It's always more money.
And that's an actual red state politically, Mike. Can you imagine in Alaska that's a purple state at best, in a place like Anchorage, that at least the government side of it is blue? I mean, do you think they're really going to reduce taking money from you so that they can do their pet projects and enact their liberal, left-wing, progressive dream? I mean, Mike, what reality do you live in? Of course, these people are going to take all the money they can get their hands on. You think they haven't already devised a dozen ways to spend that $180 million? That's been spent already. That money's gone, and they're going to come back for more. Of course, they're going to spend it. Of course, it's not going to go away. It's not temporary. They'll make it permanent, and then a couple of years down the road, they'll come back again, like you said, hat in hand. Oh, we're gonna need a little more. We have to rebuild the Sullivan Center because we destroyed it by allowing the homeless to go in there. We have to do 2 more bike paths throughout the city. We have to put some more flowers in for $1 million to beautify the city, to still convince people they want to actually stop in here and not scream through as fast as possible without getting shot or accosted. I mean, that's where it's going, Mike. I mean, come on. Anybody with some brains can look at this and see where it goes. Look at San Francisco. Look at Oakland. Look at Los Angeles. Look at Detroit. Look at Chicago. I mean, look at these places where the stuff is going on. You can see that's the direction Anchorage is going. The same type of people are in charge in these places that have turned them into nightmares that are now in charge of Anchorage. Folks, come on. Use your brains. Look at it. Anybody can see that's where it's headed.
Mike Shower is our guest. We're going to continue here. We're going to give him free reign in the next segment. Let's see what he says. It should be interesting. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y stuff. Here we go. Okay, one final segment. Mike Shower is our guest. See if I got him wound up enough in the break to continue on. All right, Mr. Shower, this is you. What else did we not talk about, or what do we need to talk about before we go for the day?
Well, I am fired up, but as you can tell, I'm staying calm because if I get too fired up, my voice is going to crack on me. It's not completely recovered. So that's why I'm kind of, if people are like, well, you're subdued today. No, not really. It's all there in my mind. I'm just not allowing my voice to raise too much because I will lose it again. So that's why. So I don't know. I mean, we haven't talked of you threw a couple things out early on, but we spent a lot of time talking about them. We haven't talked on the broader things. And, you know, I sometimes get these comments on social media. Like if I put stuff out there that's like national or international, people go, why are you talking about that? You should be talking about Alaska. I'm like, if you don't see the connection between what happens in DC, or sometimes more broadly, say what OPEC does or what maybe Russia and China are doing with minerals and other things around the world, if you're not seeing how that and those things can affect us here, it's going to be very hard for me to explain to you why I sometimes focus on those things. Because we can be impacted in ways, and yes, all politics are local. We really care about local tax policies and ordinances and bike paths and other garbage going on. But at the same time, Mike, you can't lose focus on what's happening at the broader level, because things like which president we have, right? The whole sham trial against Trump, and anybody that's a thinking human being knows the entire thing was a setup. But if you think that doesn't matter, it does. Biden has been destroying Alaska economically because he's got 60 executive orders aimed at shutting us down. Trump, at least to his credit, is a pro-development guy, pro-resource, loves Alaska. So Biden seems to hate it. So I look at it and think, if you think that doesn't matter, then you're really not applying some critical thinking skills to why it's so important on certain things that happen in certain policies. Do I have faith in DC? Of course not. Who would these days? But we certainly need people in place that are going to allow us to develop our resources so we have an economy and a sustainable future. Because right now it doesn't look so good, especially with all the lands that the feds have. So I watch that closely, right? Like I've been watching, like I said, a sham trial. These state DAs, most of them funded by Soros money to get them elected, campaigned on on targeting Trump. I mean, come on, man. Let's look at it. If at least the process was fair, and the feds took the case or something, then I go, well, okay, it can happen. But when Trump, regardless if they try to say it's different, has classified documents, charged, etc., and Biden has the same ones from longer ago. Oh, he's just a doddering old fool, but he's a nice guy. Mike, that's two standards of justice. When the federal government looks at these charges and goes, the federal government goes, nope, we ain't touching that. There's not a case here. The statute of limitations has been exceeded. Nope, those things don't make sense. It doesn't fit the mold for intent or motive. So we're not charging them. But then state DAs that ran on getting elected to attack Trump, take them at the state level, you know you got a problem. I mean, we really have reached banana republic status, Mike, where those in charge, those elected officials in charge of the government, use the power of the government to attack their political opponents. I mean, anybody that is even one iota of being awake, you're not in a coma, you can see that. Which is why I'm fascinated by this, because I'm looking at it going, I think the Democrats really don't seem to understand what they're doing here.
Right.
What they're doing by attacking.
They've opened up the
people are
floodgates.
pissed.
Yeah, they've opened up the full. Well, I think they bit off more than they can chew on this, because it's blatantly, and it's not even, they're saying the quiet part out loud that they're going to politicize this, but they have the potential for opening up the floodgate on what happens if Trump does get elected. Remember, he said he wanted to jail Hillary, and then he didn't do anything about it when he got into office. Well, what now?
He tried to play fair.
Yep.
He tried to be fair.
And now it's going to come out. What happens on the other side if he does get elected? Will again be the tete-a-tete, here tit for tat kind of thing? I mean, that's a real problem.
Well, it is. Unfortunately, that's why I said we have become a banana republic in every aspect. We allow the current officials in charge of the government and deep state implements of the federal government, like the CIA and the FBI and others. We know now that they're involved. We know it. It's come out. There's no doubt. We know that big tech companies are in collusion. Right? That used to be, oh, you're just one of those conspiracy people a few years ago, really, until Elon bought, Twitter, that became X, and showed us the algorithms. Oh yeah, they've been censoring you for years because they're all included. Facebook, of course they do, Mike. Like I said, I used to get 6,000 or 7,000 views on stuff I post. Now I'm lucky if I get 60, and I have more people following my page than less. So it's crystal clear that there is a deep state. That the deep state is not acting in the best interests of American citizens. When you have the deep state, the media, the big tech companies, a whole portion of the federal government that is opening our border to what really can only be called an invasion of mostly military-age males across the southern border, and we just let it happen, and it's probably at least 10 million under the Biden administration, because there's a whole lot of gotaways that they never actually catch. There's over 7 million they know about. Well, it's way more than that, Mike, I guarantee you. So that's a huge portion of people crossing the border, unknowns, who knows what groups they're affiliated with. Certainly a lot of cartels and gangs, a lot of foreigners like Chinese and Russians and others coming in, and Middle Eastern middle-aged men, or should say military-aged males. And they always show the picture, right? They pick the pictures because that's what the press is good at. And they show, well, it's just this kid in a cage, right? Well, it's the old AOC, right? Her pictures of showing her crying and holding the fence, and somebody had snapped a picture behind her and there was nobody on the other side of the fence. The whole thing's a freaking setup, Mike. So it's like people need to wake up and realize that we have finally achieved the status of being a banana republic.
Without the produce. We're a banana republic without the produce.
Right.
I mean, exactly it.
At least they make bananas, right?
Yeah.
Well, we got some bananas. People are bananas. They're freaking loco. But it's going to be interesting to watch over the next few months, because I actually think it's very possible that we will have the first president ever that was, charged and convicted with the felony in jail get elected president. I actually think if they put the guy in jail, you'll have even more people vote for him the way this is headed right now, because I think people see it's a sham, and they get it. You can't forget, Michael, that in this case, it's not like this is over. I saw some people on some Facebook posts posting stuff, and they're like, he's a convicted felon, he's done. I'm like, really? Is he convicted? Because you seem to be not understanding also, Pepe, how our justice system works, because there's a thing called appeal,
right.
That guy that talks on your breaks, to pull a Biden, the thing. the thing about the justice system where, you actually get appeals all the way to the Supreme Court potentially. So yeah, you can say he's convicted, but really he's not, because until the entire process is done, it's not over. And trust me, if it was Biden being charged right now, you'd be like, well, he's not really convicted until until the whole process works out. But when Trump gets it, you declare victory.
Oh yeah.
It's the double standard, Mike. It's just so it's actually, I'm beyond being frustrated more. I just laugh. I'm just like, I go, yeah. I got news for you guys. The American public is waking up and they're seeing through this.
Well,
when you see the moderates and even a lot of Democrats going, "This is BS."
Yeah. There's a lot of left-wing legal beagles who are like, the charges were bogus. The charges were bunk. I mean, this was like the mental gymnastics you had to go through on this to make it work or not. And they said he's gonna win on appeal. And so what have you really done? You've done more damage than you have done help, because people are starting to see it. And look at what the response was. In 3 days, he raised $200 million in 3 days from contributions. They busted the website. I mean, people are frustrated. And I've seen the videos of people who are like, I voted for Biden, blah, blah, but I'm voting for Trump this time because this is some bourgeois, and that's what's going on.
They're not frustrated, Mike. They're mad. And there is a difference. When you can be frustrated by something, that's, whatever. But when you've crossed beyond frustrated, people are angry at a level I haven't seen. I'm trying to think the last time I've seen that in our country. Maybe September 11th, just mad about what happened and, the attack in the country. But people are just livid with what's happening here. We're back to, convoys with flags when one park government official, federal official, makes a statement, says you can't fly a flag, and then next thing you got freedom convoys going up there. We have not seen this for some time. And so we're back to that level of the frustration building up. But that's why I sit back, as opposed to being frustrated, I'm just kind of smiling. I'm like, you guys did this. You're the ones that are stupid. You think you're so smart with your political maneuverings. You're literally virtually guaranteeing that Trump is going to be president.
Yeah.
Because people they're seeing through it. Yeah. So, and the more you attack the guy, when it's the entire deep state apparatus attacking one person, people kind of start to see through it, Mike. I mean, if they'd have been real subtle about it, maybe they could have gotten away with this. But the reality is they've been so overt in trying to destroy Trump, including Republicans, right? The whole system is so after that one guy that everybody kind of goes, wait a minute. Maybe that's who we want in office. If the deep state hates him so much, maybe that's who we want.
If everybody hates him, maybe I should be liking him, is the end of the question.
Exactly.
There. All right.
The government hates him, and that's a key. So.
Well, State Senator Mike Shower, State Senator from District O, thank you for coming on board and joining us today. As always, it's a pleasure.
A pleasure, my
It's
friend.
A pleasure. Folks, don't forget, I'm off on Friday. I won't be here. I am traveling. I won't be able to dial in, unfortunately. You'll have alternate programming. I know it's sad. I apologize. I'll try to keep that to a minimum, but this is going to be a busy summer. So I'll be back on Monday, but I'm here tomorrow, but I'm gone on Friday, if that makes sense. We'll see you guys later. Be kind, love one another, live well. All right, Mike, final bite at the apple. Hit me with it. Well, I mean, I agree with you that I think that there is a backlash. This is the same thing we saw in this state when they fought against the correspondence schooling, and the judge came out, and all of a sudden they were all reeling because they're like, oh my God, we bit off more than we could. It's going to cause a backlash in the state from people who are homeschooling and people who want alternatives. It's the same kind of thing. They get more than, they get what they want, but they didn't realize they had a tiger by the tail.
Because they're stupid, Mike. And I say that in all fairness. Literally, they're being stupid because these people think they're so smart and they're so incredibly educated that they're just better and smarter than the rest of us. And I'm looking at them going, I'm not the smartest guy around, but I can kind of see that when you overstep your bounds and you completely squash people's lives, you squash their children's education, you squash their choices, they kind of get upset. And that's pretty much what you did, Mr. Kendall, Mr. Ranked Voting, Mr. Sue Dunleavy, because you didn't like his budget, Mr. Squash Homeschool. And this guy's got his fingerprints on everything bad. But when you do this stuff, I go, maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. because once again, you've overstepped your bounds, and you're trying to destroy an entire segment of the population that, oh, by the way, isn't going to take this lying down, because the people that homeschool are already pretty much anti, establishment in a sense, if you will. Like they don't want to be part of the public education system, for example. They want to, take care of their kids on their own. And you're going to go after them, and you think they're going to sit down, take it sitting down. Boy, you really haven't learned very much, have you? And I'll make one last point. I was fishing with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this on the boat. Is that do you see how far they have us immunized, how far they have us painted into a corner, cowed, scared over in the corner? Is that if you say you support Trump, it's like you have to apologize first, right? Well, I know he's not the nicest guy, and he has mean tweets, and and I know that but I'm going to vote for him because I like him better than Biden. How many Democrats, lefties, progressive, communist, Marxists out there go apologize for Biden before they say that's who they support? Tell me.
Right. None.
And then none. But they've got us to the point, Mike, that we're afraid to say anything about it. Mike, stop apologizing, people. Be who you are. If you're a proud American, be proud. Fly the flag. If you're voting for Trump and he's your guy because the other one's an idiot, say I'm voting for Trump. He's my man. Quit apologizing for being patriotic. Quit apologizing for being American. Quit apologizing for being conservative, and go on the attack. They have got us scared and coward from doing anything and offending anybody. People like Jerry Seinfeld are standing up going, enough. Bill Maher, for God's sakes, is standing up. So the left has lost its mind. Stop apologizing for being who we are and loving our country and wanting it to be better. I'm sick and tired of being pushed into a corner, and I'm not going to take it anymore. What was that old movie? I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Network.
Quit apologizing, Mike. That's where they have us. I watch it happen all the time. They're like, well, I know he's not. Stop. If that's what you think is best for the country, be proud of it and march forward, soldier. Quit apologizing for who we are. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
China doesn't apologize for who they are. Why do Americans have to be? Stop it. Let's go backwards to where we used to be, that we were proud to be American. We were proud to build stuff. We were proud of what we accomplished.
Well, that's part of the whole
country that's the best experience ever in the nation, in the world.
That's part of the whole. That's part of the whole. The shame on America, where the whole left feels like, they feel guilty because America is successful. They feel guilty because America is the light of the world. They feel like, oh, somebody else should be doing. They have their own. They're projecting their own guilt for success or whatever on everything else, and they don't want to feel that way. They don't want to have pride or exceptional. Believe in American exceptionalism.
I'm done with that, Mike. Just so you know, I'm done with that. I'm not apologizing. I'm not afraid of it. I am a proud American. This country has done more than any other country in the history of the world to help people and bring them out of poverty, to fight wars. And yes, we've got our dark moments, slavery and treatment of the Indians. Every country does. And oh, by the way, we self-corrected. Yeah. How many countries do that?
We don't do that.
We self-corrected our problems. We're marching forward. So stop apologizing.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of people telling me this country is terrible. Then move. And the reality is they won't, because they know everywhere else is worse. So stop it and stop teaching our kids this garbage. It's time to step up, Mike, and start fighting back.
It's like the people waving the pride flags at the Palestinian
Hamas
rallies. I mean, they'd find the highest building and throw you right off of it. But hey, you do you, baby. You it's your lie. That's right. You tell it. You think it's going to be great.
Go on over there and go over there and wave that flag around downtown Gaza. Let's see what happens to you.
Yeah,
you'll last about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
whatever. So
well,
I'm done putting up with the garbage, Mike. So
that's good. That's good. I mean, we need true, authentic people is what we need, instead of this mealy mouth BS that we keep seeing at every turn. And we need people to really mean what they say and say what they mean. And unfortunately, with politicians, that's a kind of a non-starter, it seems like these days, unfortunately. All right. Well, Mike, I'm glad I could get you wound up. You don't even need coffee today. You're all good. Thanks for coming on board and being part of it with us today. We appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Good to talk to you. Safe travels. We'll see you next week.
All right. We will see you next week as well. Thank you, sir. All right, folks. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. Got to get out of here. We appreciate you guys being part of it with us today. Thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow. And then we're off again on Friday. So that's it. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.